Hey yo, just for real, when we're telling you that they know, like that devil is scared. Fucking scared. This satanic demon, it knows it's like it's going where it came from, right? So this guy, look what he's doing now. This is what he's doing because he's psychotic, a sadist, and he's fucking mentally, he's a parasite. Typical narcissist, blaming other people for their crimes and abuse and all the stuff that this guy has to do it. But he's not alone. Let's not blame everything on this motherfucker. But yes, absolutely. But this is what a criminal, war criminal, will do. Netanyahu accuses UK, France, and Canada of emboldening Hamas after Gaza criticism. First of all, let's dive in with the specific words here. For example, surge of international criticism of Israel action in Gaza and renewed calls from allies for an immediate ceasefire. This means that you stop bombing and massacring, ethnic cleansing children, women, and men, people with disabilities. Literally, they're trying to, what they've done in Gaza, it is Holocaust, a genocide, right? This guy is trying to continue getting away with it, right? Massive starvation, which is a war crime, multiple war crimes, right? And this is emboldened, and this person doesn't want to hold accountability, typical patriarchy bullshit, misogyny and all that, right? And blaming other people who are resistant fighters, who the reason why most of Palestinians have been surviving, whoever is left from this genocide for 19 months, it's because of the resistance. It's because of, thanks to Yemen, to blocking the Red Sea and doing the work that most of us should be doing, which is blocking any shipment of war crime weapons, arms and weapons and bombs and stuff like that. This should not be. It should not be. It should be completely, obviously illegal. But a lot of us, this guy is trying to make it normalized. They're trying to normalize murder. This guy is a war criminal murder. And they're trying to normalize it. They're saying that politicians who have money, parasite people who are psychopath, if they have money, they're able to do this, right? If they hold a seat in the UN Council and can bypass international law, is that what this guy is trying to? This is what he's doing. He's our generation Hitler. And a lot of us, we say, oh, what happened to the Jews? You're doing exactly what you would have done in the Holocaust and genocide for the Jews. You are doing it right now. It's the exact same thing. For a lot of you, it's the racist demonic energy that I've been telling you about that you need to eradicate. And white supremacy demon racist energy. You need to trap it where it needs to go, and you need to let it go. And one of those things that you do is by calling out narcissists, psychotic like this. Also, criticism. What type of word is this? You couldn't use another word. Do you want to know why? Because the specific words that they use to dehumanize and try to lower the actual war crimes. Like they're trying to criticism. So us telling a war criminal a psychopath, and the USA as well involved in this. Let's not get it twisted. They're sending bombs and money and or taxes funding this, right? These cannot be exonerated because UK is as complicit as the USA is. France as well. Now France is trying to, save their pellejo, save their, because, wait, no. I know I colonizer. I know, I'm doing fucked up shit in Sudan and what's going on in Africa and stuff like that, right? Canada is also a genocidal colony, right? With indigenous black people here in Canada, but specifically indigenous. And they're still doing in a converted narcissist way. UK, they're complicit, right? So he's accusing that it's on board of Hamas. It's like, no, they're finally calling you out because these three are exactly what you're doing. They know that they have done it, and they say, no, you're going too far. We haven't done the things that you've done, right? Fucked up, right? But you got to think like the enemy and these motherfucking evil people. This is why they're trying to criminalize protests, and they're trying to do all the things that you're supposed to be doing, protesting, boycotting. All these things is working. These three are a way. We might actually have to force our population to do this. They don't really like it. This guy, on the other hand, is trying to distract all of y'all from going to prison. He needs to be in The Hague. And all the Israel cabinets, all those people, they need to be in prison. Everyone who is benefiting or has contributed to the genocide in Palestine and the Congo and the Sudan and what's going on in Yemen, which is documented. Please check out my Telegram. Everything is documented. I'm going to post that blog very soon. I'm just waiting to see, because Father God asked me to also give some solution and encouragement, because we're in this together. We have to continue uniting. We have to continue boycotting. But God is first. And he's telling you that this is a fucking demonic, this is Satan himself, right? Living in this body, right? But also he spreads to all the politicians and people who are in these countries. USA, how it's strategic that USA is not here. Why is USA not here? Why is it Germany not here? Why is it Australia? Like, all of them need to be held accountable, and we also need to implement and enforce and continue the pressure of international law to be respected. To stop the blockade, the starvation, the genocide in Palestine and Gaza, and what's going on in the north and the south and the West Bank. We have plenty of evidence in the Telegram as well. And proof and non-stop. And they still think that we're dumbasses as this guy. It's just what it is. And it's not going to come just from me. This is a divine message that Father God keeps saying. Emboldening Hamas after Gaza criticism. It's like a cowardized lie that they don't know. He doesn't know what else to do. He's scared. He's petrified. And he should be. You're not invisible. And you will be held accountable, not just in this lifetime, but the next. And the next. And everybody associated with this person and everybody who contribute in the Israel genocide, you are being called. You know the judgment is here. That's why he kept saying the judgment is every day. You are being judged every single day, all of y'all. Nobody's generated from nothing here. This is Earth School. But you need to understand that when you need to put a demon in place, you need to put it in place in a cage, in a hag, and put it away from people, because this is an endangerment to humanity. Not the resistance fighters who have been protecting and saving the people that this one is trying to completely annihilate, completely extinct, right? Because that's the point. That's the Zionism energy, right? Right? A lot of you think, do you think this is normal? Do you think this is okay? Do you think that this is justifying this? You lost your humanity. You're fucked in the head. Your guys are so programmed and sick of this world, and you're letting it do this. This is Zionism. No civilized world can coexist with it. It must be dismantled in full. And that is the truth. That is a fact. Sorry, I cannot. We live in a world that this is okay. Finally, some scrubs of 8 are coming in from the free world outside of this torture camp and prison that we once used to call our beloved homeland. Do you think this is okay? Really? A lot of you, the white supremacy parasite cancer is so sad. A lot of you, it's just like you're just lost. You're lost. And that's why I'm telling God, why are you trying to save, like, these people are sick. Their mind is sick. Their heart is sick. They're soulless, heartless. How can you look at a child with no legs and stuff like that and still justify murders, killers? We're going to continue. We're trying to normalize this. This is what we're doing. This is fascist as fuck. And a lot of y'all need to wake the fuck up. It's a hell fucking no. We need to create serious, not only international boundaries, it needs to be sanctions. It needs to be not only for us as well. We need to create protection. Like a lot of you, I don't know, but I don't feel safe when I see cops and police and stuff like that. Makes me more like, I'm not safe. These people are like predators. Especially like now I know where their training coming from. No, fuck that. Free Palestine, free Congo, free Sudan. That's it. Like,
you might not realize it, but an issue that you care about is probably a lot closer connected to Palestine than you might think. Like if you care about ICE agents who are abducting people all around the country, you should know that many of those agents are likely trained by Israel in exchange programs, along with cops and FBI agents. Or if you're concerned about our Earth burning up from climate change, you should know that in the first few months of the genocide, Israel's bombs released more carbon than 26 countries combined, and it's only gotten worse since then. Or even if you're more concerned with domestic issues like education, healthcare, or a crumbling infrastructure, infrastructure, we can't solve any of those things with the military-industrial complex that takes up the majority of the national budget without ever passing an audit. Like the budget bill that Republicans just passed gives the military $1 trillion while cutting Medicare. And Americans on average will pay 5 times more to military contractors, like the ones that they just hired to run concentration camps in Gaza, than to K-12 education, healthcare, or infrastructure upgrades. And if you care about black civil rights, feminism, or even gay rights, you should know that the same systems that oppress black, queer, and female people, like the police and private prisons, are trained and armed with Israeli technology that's been developed on Palestinians. Like that kneeling technique that killed George Floyd? Yeah, that came from Israel. This is what people mean when they say that none of us are free until all of us are free. It's because nothing happens in a vacuum. It's all connected. And that's part of why pro-Palestinian people are so passionate about this, because we don't view Palestine as a single issue. We view it as a manifestation of nearly all the big social issues that we face today at the same time. It's not your fault that these connections aren't obvious. Our movements are intentionally kept separated and pit against each other because that makes us all easier to control. It's a well-established technique called divide and conquer, and it's insanely effective. We're taught to think that solidarity is transactional, that freedom is a zero-sum game, when the exact opposite is actually true. There's enough freedom to go around. There's enough liberation for everybody. The reality is, the struggle for Palestinian freedom is a product of the same systems that created all the other struggles that we deal with today. Freedom for Palestinians and end to the occupation does mean more freedom for everybody. It means chipping away at the same systems that's causing all of our problems. So if you haven't spoken up yet, it's not too late. It's never too late. And remember, it's not a one-way street. If you show up for Palestinians, Palestinians will show up for you, and we'll all be freer together. So if you want to learn more about these specific connections between Palestine and other social issues, then check out the latest issue of the Conscious Citizens Dispatch, where we tried to lay this all out with as much detail as possible. You can get access to it for free by signing up through the link in our link tree. And if you want to support Palestine but you're not quite sure where to start, we've also released a Palestine support list that lists out all sorts of small and large ways that you can support Palestine today, whether that's monetarily or with some other form of action. And if you like the videos and the resources that we've been putting out, we really appreciate it if you could support our work for as little as $2 a month.
Listen to the buzzwords. Listen to them clearly. Pay attention to what's happening right now. Listen to them use words like jihad or Islamic terrorism or extremist Muslims. Listen for this shit. Listen for them saying things like intifada. Listen to the fear-mongering. Listen to the Islamophobia. How many times have you heard people say things like Jewish extremists or radical Judaism? You won't, because we won't stoop to that fucking level. We won't try to conflate a beautiful religion to the terrorist acts of Israel and Zionism. You out there who continue to use these words trying to scare people into hating Muslims even more, it isn't going to work anymore. People have caught on. We are not going to stoop to their level, but just pay attention. Listen to the fear-mongering. Listen to the tactics they use so you continue hating Arabs and Muslims, and they can continue justifying killing them.
Almost 400 people asked me to read this letter, and I cannot tag that amount of people, unfortunately, but I hope this pops up on your FYP. If you're an African, please listen up. This is King Leopold's letter to the Christian missionaries back in 1883. Reverends, fathers, and dear compatriots, the task that is given to fulfill is very delicate and requires much tact. You will go certainly to evangelize, but your evangelization must inspire above all Belgium interests. Your principal objective in our mission in the Congo is never to teach the niggers to know God. This they know already. This is for everyone who always says, thank God for colonialism because it brought us God, and you can't know God and know your ancestors at the same time. Your colonizer knew that it was possible. Your colonizer knew. But anyways, let's go. They speak and submit to a Mungu, one Nzambi, one Nzakomba, and what else I don't know. They know that to kill, to sleep with someone else's wife, and to insult is bad. Have courage to admit it. You're not going to teach them what they know already. Your essential is to facilitate the task of administrators and industrials, which means you will go to interpret the gospel in a way that it will be the best to protect your interests in that part of the world. For these things, you have to keep watch on disinteresting our savages from the richness that is plenty in their ground, to avoid that they get interested in it and make you murderous competition and dream one day to overthrow you. Your knowledge of the gospel will allow you to find texts ordering and encouraging followers to love poverty. Like happier are the poor because they will inherit heaven, and it is difficult for the rich to enter the kingdom of God. You have to detach from them and make them disrespect everything which makes them affront us. I make reference to their mystic system and their fetish warfare protection, which they pretend not to want to abandon, and you must do everything in your power to make it disappear. If you know your history or read a lot, you'll know that our forefathers used to consult spiritual leaders or spiritual practitioners, like your healers or whatever, each time they went into warfare so that they would be able to protect themselves. But anyways, let's go. Your action will be directed essentially to the younger one, for they won't revolt when the recommendations of the priest is contradictory to the teachings of their parents. The children have to obey what the missionary recommends, who is the father of their soul. You must singularly insist on their total submission and obedience. Avoid developing the spirit in schools. Teach students how to read, not to reason. There, dear patriots, are some of the principles that you must apply. You will find many other books which will be given to you at the end of this conference. He was referring to the Berlin conference, and this is why I always say I have beef with the Bible. Okay, because certain things were written in there specifically to control the masses. Evangelize the niggas so that they stay forever in submission to the white colonialists, so that they never revolt against the restraints that they are undergoing. Recite every day, happy are those who are weeping, for the kingdom of God is for them. Convert always the blacks by using the whip. Keep their women in 9 months of submission to work freely for us. Force them to pay you in recognition, goats, chicken, or eggs every time you visit their villages. And make sure niggers never become rich. Sing every day that it's impossible for the rich to enter heaven. Make them pay taxes every week at Sunday Mass. Use the money supposed for the poor to use for flourishing business centers. Institute a confessional system which allows you to be good detectives, denouncing any black with a different consciousness contrary to that of the decision maker. Teach the niggas to forget their heroes and adore ours only. Never present a chair to a black that comes to visit you. Don't give him more than one cigarette. Don't invite him for supper, even if he gives you a chicken every time you arrive at his house. And I want to tell you guys that Leopold won. Because even today, some of the things he told the missionaries to teach us and to drill into our minds are still, they're still useful for the colonizer. They're still useful for the colonizer till this day. Yes. I want you guys to reflect. Then some of you are going to comment in here with a lot of cognitive dissonance, which is fine. But I want you to sit back and just think about it. I love you guys, ne? I love you guys. Mwah.
Some of you are being fucking moronic. It's killing me. So let me make this very clear to some of you, since you're not willing to pick up a fucking book or to do a simple Google search. Palestinians are more Semitic than the Europeaners that came over to colonize their fucking land. Let that sink in, okay? The Palestinians that are there now, okay, and that have always been there were once, going way back, Canaanites, and then they became, what? Jews, and then they became Christians, and then they became Muslims, or some of the Palestinians stayed Christians. That's why you still have Palestinian Muslims and Palestinian Christians and Palestinian Jews. So these Palestinians are indigenous to the land and are Semitic. So when you go after artists like Kehlani and Macklemore and Susan Sarandon and Kneecap and Melissa Barrera and all these other artists who have been vocal speaking up for the freedom of Palestinians, they're speaking up for the freedom of Semites. You absolute morons. So stop calling people anti-Semitic when they're calling for the safety of Semites.
If If you wanted to stop Africa from becoming a superpower, you wouldn't have to invent a new strategy. The blueprint has already been written, tested, and perfected over centuries. You'd start by making sure Africa never unites. The easiest way to do that is by keeping people divided along ethnic, tribal, and religious lines. If they ever start working together, remind them of past grievances. Stoke old wounds. Fund separatist movements. Keep border disputes unresolved. Make sure every time they take one step forward, they take 2 steps back because they're too busy fighting each other. You'd install leaders who serve foreign interests, not their people. Find the most corrupt, the most easily manipulated, the ones who crave wealth and status more than progress. Offer them power in exchange for loyalty. If a leader rises who actually cares about Africa, get rid of them. Assassinate them if necessary. But if that's too messy, just destabilize their government and back a coup. If they talk about nationalizing resources, make an example out of them. If they try to unite Africa, take them out before the idea spreads. You'd keep Africa economically weak by making sure it never industrializes. Let them export raw materials, but never process them themselves. Control the mines, the oil fields, the rare earth minerals. Keep them selling cheap and buying expensive. If a country tries to break free and build its own industries, sabotage it. Place sanctions, destabilize its currency, fund local opposition, crash its economy. If that doesn't work, orchestrate a civil war. People can't build when they're too busy trying to survive. You'd make sure their education system produces workers, not innovators. Teach them history that glorifies their oppressors. Make them think their cultures are primitive. Their ancestors were savages. Their future depends on foreign approval. Train them to memorize, not to think critically. Keep their best and brightest looking overseas for opportunities. Make them dream of escaping Africa rather than fixing it. Offer scholarships that take their top minds to the West and never encourage them to return. Let the continent keep training doctors and engineers only for them to go enrich other nations. You'd control their narratives. Own their media, control their stories, dictate their image to the world. Make them believe they are corrupt, hopeless, eternally in crisis. Flood their screens with poverty porn and war zones. Show them charity ads that make them believe they are helpless without foreign aid. Downplay their successes. Twist their victories into isolated incidents. If an African country develops a groundbreaking innovation, credit a foreign investor. If an African leader implements a successful policy, frame it as an anomaly rather than proof of competence. You'd make sure they remain dependent. Drown them in debt. Offer loans with impossible conditions. Force them to privatize everything so foreign corporations own their water, their electricity, their land. When they struggle, give them just enough aid to keep them alive, but never enough to make them self-sufficient. Use charities to create a culture of reliance rather than resilience. Make them think foreign intervention is necessary, that they can't solve their own problems, that they always need help from the outside. You'd suppress their military strength. Keep their armies weak, their defense industries non-existent. Sell them weapons to fight each other, but never let them develop high-tech military technology. If a country tries to build a strong defense system, accuse them of being a threat to stability. Make sure they always need foreign peacekeepers, foreign military bases, foreign advisors controlling their security. Keep them vulnerable to invasion, coups, and foreign interference. The formula is simple. Divide, corrupt, exploit, miseducate, control. Keep them fighting each other. Keep them looking outside for solutions. Keep them poor, dependent, insecure. Make sure every attempt to break free is met with resistance so strong that the next generation thinks twice before trying again. This isn't a theory. It's history. The real question isn't how to stop Africa from becoming a superpower. It's how Africa can break the cycle despite every effort to keep it down.
I don't know why I even bother talking to Zionists. It's like talking to a narcissist. They're never wrong. They're always the victim. They'll ruin your entire life, but then they'll claim that it's your fault. They'll destabilize the entire region, commit decades of ethnic cleansing, mass deportation.
Can you give me a list of embassy employees assassinated by Israel?
Certainly. Here's a concise chronological list of assassinations attributed to Israeli forces, focusing on embassy employees and diplomatic representatives. Pre-state Zionist operations. 1924, Jerusalem. Jacob Israel de Haan, a Dutch-Jewish anti-Zionist activist, was assassinated by the Haganah for his opposition to Zionist policies. 1944, Cairo. Lord Moyne, British Minister of State for the Middle East, was assassinated by 𝉑𝆃𝑊�words, Stern Gang operatives. 1946, Jerusalem. The King David Hotel, housing British administrative offices, was bombed by the Irgun, resulting in 91 deaths. 1946, Rome. The British embassy was bombed by 𝉑𝆃, causing significant damage. 1947, Netanyahu. In the Sergeant's Affair, the Irgun kidnapped and executed 2 British sergeants in retaliation for the execution of Irgun members by British authorities. Post-1948 Israeli operations targeting PLO, Fatah, and PFLP figures. 1972, Rome. Wales Whiter, PLO representative and Libyan embassy employee, was shot dead by Mossad agents. 1972, Paris. Mahmoud Hamshari, PLO representative in France, was killed by a bomb concealed in his telephone. 1973, Nicosia. Hussein al-Bashir, Fatah representative in Cyprus, was killed by a bomb in his hotel room. 1973, Paris. Mohammed Boudia, Black September officer, was killed by a car bomb. 1978, East Berlin. Wadi Haddad, PFLP commander, died from poisoned chocolates. 1979, Beirut. Ali Hassan Salameh, PLO leader, was killed by a car bomb. 1982, Paris. Fadl Dani, PLO deputy director, was killed by a car bomb. 1983, Athens. Mamoun Maraish, PLO official, was shot dead. 1986, Athens. Khalid Nazal, DFLP leader, was shot dead. 1986, Athens. Munzer Abu Ghazala, PLO official, was killed by a car bomb. 1988, Tunis. Khalil al-Wazir Abu Jihad, PLO military chief, was assassinated in his home. This list highlights key instances of political assassinations attributed to Israeli forces, focusing on embassy employees and diplomatic representatives.
And before I hear the 2 wrongs don't make a right, the point of this post is not to litigate the morality of this action, but to ask yourself, 1, who set the norm? And 2, why is our media only outraged now?
Mark Carney is wasting no time in exposing his truth. Carney is passing a law to criminalize Palestine solidarity protesters as a response to what happened in Washington, D.C. Rather than condemn these violent Zionists, he is targeting peaceful protesters who are protesting the selling of their homes to white settlers living on Turtle Island. He didn't care about his own diplomats who got shot at by the Israeli military, but these Israeli embassy staff in Washington, D.C. who were killed. He actually expresses a strong statement, but not only does he condemn it, he conflates an attack against Israeli embassy staff, as being anti-Semitic. Soon he's going to have the same level of protests against him and attract the same level of anger that Justin Trudeau attracted. Mark Carney, if you ever listen to this, the world stands with Palestine. The world sees the ongoing genocide, and you trying to conflate criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism, it is so old. Netanyahu trying to conflate saying free Palestine with supporting Hitler.
Free Palestine is just today's version of Heil Hitler.
Ridiculous. We will continue to mobilize and to speak and to say free Palestine until it's free.
In Gaza, I operated in hospitals without sterility, electricity, or anesthetics. Surgeries took place on crowded and filthy floors. Children died not because their injuries were unsurvivable, but because we lacked blood, antibiotics, and the most basic supplies that are readily available in any large hospital anywhere else in the world. I did not see or treat a single combatant during my 5 weeks in Gaza. My patients were 6-year-olds with shrapnels in their heart and bullets in their brains, and pregnant women whose pelvises had been obliterated and their fetuses cut in two while still in the womb. Mothers sheltering in the hospital cooked bread on hot plates in the emergency department during mass casualty events, as we dealt with the rain of fire and death falling around us everywhere. Mr. President, the foundations of life in Gaza, family, health, and community, have been shattered. The medical system has not failed. It has been systematically dismantled through a sustained military campaign that has willfully violated international humanitarian law. Civilians are now dying not just from the constant airstrikes, but from acute malnutrition, sepsis, exposure, and despair. Between my 2 visits to Gaza, I witnessed a sharp decline in patients' health, driven not just by injury, but by worsening hunger and malnutrition that left their bodies weaker, their wounds slower to heal, and their survival far less certain. And let's not forget, this is a man-made catastrophe. It is entirely preventable. Participating in it or not, allowing it to happen is a choice. This is a deliberate denial of conditions necessary for life: food, shelter, water, and medicine. Preventing genocide means refusing to normalize these atrocities. It means refusing to dehumanize the Palestinians. On March 18th, the ceasefire was violated by Israel. That day, I witnessed the most extreme mass casualty event of my career at Nasser Medical Complex. 221 trauma patients arrived in one morning. 90 were dead on arrival. Nearly half were severely injured children. No health system on earth could cope with this, least of all one that is besieged and starved of supplies. Hospitals are meant to be sanctuaries. Healthcare workers and first responders are supposed to be protected. Children are supposed to be protected. In Gaza, these protections are simply gone. Every day, the distinction between combatant and civilian is erased. Most of my patients were pre-teen children, their bodies shattered by explosives and torn by flying metal. Many died. Those who lived often awoke to find their entire families gone. Last year, I published in the New York Times a survey of 65 American healthcare workers who had served in Gaza. 83% of them reported seeing children shot in the head or the chest. I personally treated 13 such cases in my 2 weeks at European Hospital. If this council remains silent and fails to act now, that record will stand as a testament to a global failure to provide urgent care and to the collapse of our collective conscience. I'm pleading with you to do what you were entrusted to do, to protect international peace and security, and to prevent irreversible harm.
There is no such thing as only peaceful resistance. Resistance is with all forms. Whatever you have, then you can use, because if you are the victim of foreign invasion. The Palestinians have...
Tourists and school children are going on field trips in Israel, but not to museums. Instead, to watch the destruction of Gaza. Known as resilience tourism in Israel, but as genocide tourism internationally.
We were a mile and a half or so from 300,000 people who were being forcibly starved to death by the Israelis.
That was Matthew Ho, a former U.S. State Department official and U.S. Marine veteran, who recently took this tour in Sderot, where visitors use coin-operated binoculars to peek into Gaza.
An Israeli school field trip showed up, and these children, they're teenagers, they came from 2 hours away to come and watch the genocide.
The tours are also done in English for international visitors and are included in Birthright Israel trips for Jewish Americans and for all Israeli school children.
The population sees it as entertainment, where you have this complete dismissal of the Palestinians as human beings, but part of their school curriculum.
And it doesn't just stop at the observation platforms. Reportedly, boat tours have been organized to view the destruction of Gaza, sparking outrage worldwide.
We live in a world where being silent on genocide is less offensive than speaking out about it. People will say nothing on Palestine. Nothing, not a thing. They'll be silent until somebody shows their support for it. And I will give you some examples. I live in a block of flats. There's maybe about 15 of us who live here. Well, I live here permanently. The rest of them are just owned by other people who have multiple houses and just come here for the summer, but I digress. I put up a Palestine flag on my balcony in my private apartment, and all of a sudden, within an hour of me having a Palestinian flag up, I got calls from my landlord telling me that it was offensive and to take it down. I worked for a company for a few months, thank God I don't work for them anymore, who offered me a job that said it was on the basis that I stopped being so polarising online. When I asked them what it is that I'm saying that is so polarising, they meant the genocide in Palestine. I took the job and I carried on with my activism. It wasn't going to stop me. But honestly, there are people who have told me, oh, if I talk about Palestine, I'll lose my job. So lose it then. Lose your job. My God. When this is studied in history, I want those people who allowed themselves to be silenced, who allowed themselves to be censored, didn't recognise their privilege, didn't realise that they could just, practice their free speech, stand up for children who are getting burnt to a crisp. I want to remind them that they did nothing, and that when they finally did start speaking out, when the BBC media suddenly started being like, oh yeah, no, this is a really bad situation, it was too late. We could have all stopped this. But we were censoring each other. We were allowing ourselves to be censored by companies, by brands, by our governments. We carry on with our little palatable causes. We talk about the environment and about LGBT causes, which are both very, very important causes, by the way. But the minute children are getting starved, the minute there is a literal famine, the minute that we see limbs being blown into the air, you're not going to speak on that. If your activism is just about the white feminism topics, if it's about abortion, if you're going on about the USA and how bad the Americans have it, you're not an activist. I don't care. I don't care what you have to say. I don't care. Shame on all of us. I don't believe that there is a God, because I couldn't possibly, with all of the evil that's going on. But if there is, I hope that we are all judged accordingly. It wasn't just Israel that has done this to the Palestinians. This is all of us. All of us had a hand in this. Shame on us.
All right. Okay, so let's talk about criticism. Criticism sounds like, when you're criticizing someone, either, their physique, their, the type of clothes they're wearing, innocent stuff, right? Criticism, right? Like, maybe your hair needs to be fixed a certain way, whatever you think, aesthetic or stuff like that. That's what criticism for me it means. But for other people could mean, I don't know. It's just, I find that the criticism, it's a word that we use to, just like, I don't know. It just doesn't fit to condemn, right? To put into bars, behind bars, a war criminal who has been killing children, women, men. And I don't care. It's not about religion. But it will always be about religion. It's always been about racism, right? That's why they weaponize these things. And that's what I'm saying. Criticism is not the right word, right? This is what I'm trying to get at. They're using specific words that justify dehumanization. That is just innocent way of dehumanizing the oppressed, right? And then the oppressors get away with it without accountability, feeling like the victims, as always, right? And blaming other people for the stuff that they are doing, right? Now, I want to make it very clear for a lot of y'all. What the resistant fighters are doing, I dare you to do it. Are you able to stand up with not much weaponry, not much help at all from anyone? The hate and jealousy from everybody else trying to tell you, you just have to let it happen. You just have to let your people, your family, loved ones, let go of the empathy. Don't have any empathy. Those people being bombed, that's a normal thing. They're trying to normalize murdering, slaughtering, butchering brown people. Let's just make it clear, because that's what it is. This is what white supremacy, parasite cancer is. And this is why a lot of y'all, when we're talking about awakened and wake up and higher consciousness and Christ consciousness, you need to understand that it's an end of white supremacy and at work outside of the status quo and do things outside of the status quo. Now, this energy of Netanyahu and all this bullshit, it's a lot of distraction for the actual thing that needs to happen, right? We need to stop this genocide. It needs to end the apartheid, and it has to stop, right? And the land back. Palestinian is a state, right? Ceasefire, immediate ceasefire. There's no 6 months. No, done. We are done with this fucking bullshit. We're not dumbasses like they think that we are. We're educated. We know what's going on. We know about the Nakba. We know about the auto. We know all of this. This is all staged, and that's what he keeps saying. Are you awake yet? Are you there yet? Because there's consequences of things that are going to happen, and a lot of you Father guys also at the same time trying to protect the people that have been doing this work. What, do you think being surrounded by people who are fucked up and evil, that you're supposed to be around these people? That you have to have clear boundaries with these people. These are karmic energy that are going through intense karmic lessons. What, do you think that we're just gonna let it? No, that's not how it works. Everything is exposed. The veil is completely off. The mask is off. You're seeing the mask. A lot of you're like, no, that's just fantasy, right? My intuition playing tricks on me. No, trust me. The oppressors and those who are intensely afraid, that a lot of you know this, like the mask completely off, and you see the real demonic evil entity, the parasite, that most of the highly intuitive seers, the seekers, the learners who have that learning mindset, we see right through it. You are a threat to these people. I know that most of the truth tellers and people who are doing this type of work know this, right? And a lot of you, this is why I'm saying that, for example, criticism could be something how you have a certain opinion of how someone works or how someone does certain things and how they can improve their work, their whatever appearance. For some of you, if that's important, that I don't really give a shit. I care about the soul and what people have in their heart. But criticism to condemn and to bring someone to justice, bring someone who is a war criminal, who is a psychopath, mentally unstable, right? And also all the people who are protecting this energy, right? Because it's not just Netanyahu, it's not just the USA president, it's not just the Canada Prime Minister or the UK or what's going on in France. These are just the cover. These are just like the how do you say it? Like the monitor spirits, like the ones that are put in front. So the real evil who are doing the evil shit in the background, they don't get called out because they know that if we end up calling them out, the oligarchs and billionaires, the people, corporation, fossil fuels, the people who own these bombs that are killing people and justifying and putting all these politicians, this is our destruction. This is why they're trying to criminalize now people who speak the truth, calling us terrorists. And this, we've seen it before. This is not the first time. That's why for climate activists, this what's happening. We've seen this before. We have reached this milestone here, right? Where they make up stories to justify getting caught, right? And this is a pattern so that we already know. So that's why we're telling you guys that whatever we are doing as a collective liberation, as unity, whichever diaspora you are, especially those who are against genocide and want to end the slaughter, right? Want to end this, the most racist, demonic, satanic ritual cult is genocide. This is a blood sacrifice that they've been planning for decades, right? Especially for the people who have very divine energy that comes from the Most High. They are the closest to the Most High because nobody can reach that far, right? Only if He allows it. And a lot of you, He is allowing it, especially those who have pure heart. You have empathy. You care about those. You put yourself in that situation. What would I do if I was dealing with a genocide, was trying to survive a genocide? This is the biggest thing for oppressors, that they want you not to care. They want to continue the capitalist apathy and horrendous demonic energy, this siphoning energy. Because by the way, when you're in that fear and evil, jealousy, envy, like the lowest vibration, this is where also siphoning happens much faster. So a lot of you, it's like you are like walking like zombie right now. Like not zombie, but I would say like dead inside, like no soul and heart, and you're feeding demonic entities every day, all the time. Especially the ignorance is greedy, is also an energy harvesting, right? that harvests and powers this energy of evil, right? A lot of us, we are not fighting the physical, and it's very spiritual. And they're cowards and liars. This is their weapon, is fear and doubt and fear mongering, and also creating situations, killing people and trying to get away with it. They're trying to normalize murdering. Genocide is the most thing that any human can do. And they're doing it. And we have evidence and live footage. It's live genocide. This is what it would be like if it was in the 1942, 1945. World War II. And these people, the Palestinians, are paying the price for World War II Europe situation. That's what it comes up to. When you read the history and you're like, oh, it's Europe. It's what it is. Colonialism, right? I gotta go. I hope this makes sense. Criticism is a low vibrational energy, is condemning, is sanctioning, is very strong words that we need to be using, especially with demonic entities that need to be put in prison. Okay? I love you. I hope this makes sense. Free Palestine, free Congo, free Sudan, and continue speaking the truth, because it is working. And keep boycotting and keep what you gotta do. Okay? I love you. Bye.
It's not a war anymore. Whatever it was, however history might dress it up in uniforms and flags and think tanks, it's over. There are no battles, there are no fronts. There is no resistance large enough to call it a war. There is only an army with drones and tanks and phosphorus, and a population of starving families locked inside a strip of land so small you could walk its length before sundown. This is not a war. This is the murder of children while the world watches and refreshes Twitter. This is the sound of babies dying behind censored screens. This is a tragedy where the soundtrack is silence. Gaza's in ruins. There is a woman boiling weeds to feed her son who hasn't spoken in days, a child who dreams in color but wakes up to ashes. There's a boy wandering barefoot through craters, dragging a plastic bag filled with bread so stale it could chip teeth. There's a doctor who has run out of morphine, performing amputations by flashlight with nothing but rags and prayers. There are aid workers whose bodies were pulled from the convoy, burned, twisted, the white lettering of UN still visible on the roof of the vehicle that was supposed to protect them. And there are children. Doctors say they have never seen so many infants with bullet wounds to the head, toddlers who arrived at makeshift emergency rooms with the backs of their skulls blown out. The lucky ones die instantly, the unlucky ones linger for hours. Their parents screaming into the dark. They bury them in parks and playgrounds and shallow graves marked with plastic forks, because the cemeteries are full. A mother cradles a body that won't grow old, while a father digs with his hands because the shovels have run out long ago, and still the bombs fall. The Israeli government says this is self-defense, but the babies did not attack anyone. They were born behind fences, in a land without clean water where they were already starving before the siege. They were born stateless, voiceless, and now they are dying in silence. There is no war. There is only cruelty. There is only empire. There is only the cold arithmetic of death written in Pentagon ink and broadcast with sanitized language. The world says Israel has a right to defend itself. Against what? Against the babies with plastic toys and sunken eyes, against the men carrying the bodies of their mothers through rubble, against hunger. If this is a war, then what does peace look like? A silence so thorough it swallows even the memory of who once lived here? And maybe that's the plan, to make it so quiet, so empty, so flattened and still that no one remembers the laughter of Palestinian children or the smell of their mother's lentils on Friday afternoons. To make ghosts of the living and myths of the dead, to erase the evidence of their humanity until we forget they were ever here at all. But I remember, and now so do you. And what follows that knock at the door, that haunting silence, the long memory of Gaza, the land where the graveyards are dug by children and the cemeteries are layered with both the dead and the dreams of the living. This didn't start in October. You don't build a prison overnight, and you don't raise a generation to believe another is subhuman unless you plan to do something with that belief. Gaza's been under blockade since 2007. That's 17 years of siege. 17 years of lights going out like every 2 hours, like a punishment. 17 years of parents choosing which child eats and which child goes hungry. 17 years of polluted water and electricity for 2 hours a day, of denied medical permits, of watching the rest of the world live while you count each minute like it's a grain of sand in a broken hourglass. It's not a city, it's a slow kill zone. And it's not survival, it's cruelty scripted into policy. And before that, the Nakba, the catastrophe, 1948, the beginning of the Israeli state and the end of 750,000 Palestinian lives as they knew them. Villages erased, olive groves bulldozed, mosques turned to museums, entire families forced out at gunpoint, keys still hang around the necks of survivors, rusted reminders of homes that no longer exist. But even before the Nakba, the plot was laid, long before the rockets, before the blockades, before the slogans and sirens. The foundation was poured in the 18th and 19th centuries, when European powers began to imagine carving up the Middle East to serve their geopolitical desires. In Britain, imperialists sought not to expand territory, but to plant ideological flags in strategic soil. By the mid-1800s, Protestant dispensationalist movements in Europe had grafted religious prophecy onto colonial ambition. They promoted the idea that the Jews must return to Palestine as a prelude to the end times, not for the Jewish people's sake, but as chess pieces in an apocalyptic design. The Balfour Declaration of 1917 was not a love letter to Judaism. It was a policy crafted by colonial administrators to install a loyal Western outpost in the Arab world, under the guise of divine fulfillment. The U.S. picked up the torch in the 20th century and ran like hell with it. By the time World War II ended and Israel declared itself a state in 1948, Americans, especially American evangelicals, had been primed to believe that Israel's existence wasn't just justified, but sacred. Politicians learned quickly that support for Israel could be wrapped in religious fervor and delivered to the electorate like communion. It was no accident. It was a campaign. Through pulpits, pamphlets, and eventually policy think tanks, American leaders equated criticism of Israel with heresy. It didn't matter if the U.S. was arming an apartheid regime, building military bases, or vetoing every UN resolution demanding justice. The American people had been sold a story. Israel is the will of God, and we are its supporters. And what has that meant for foreign policy? It has meant blank checks and blind eyes. It has meant destabilization across the Middle East, from Lebanon to Iraq to Syria. It has meant generations of Arab and Muslim people growing up watching the United States fund their oppression and call it peacekeeping. It has meant every Palestinian child bombed is paid for by your taxes. Every bullet, every airstrike, every goddamn hospital destroyed. It has meant that truth is treason, that justice is unpatriotic, that to say what is plainly happening, ethnic cleansing, apartheid, genocide, is to be cast out as a radical. To say simply that they are people is to risk exile. It has meant that we cannot see the truth because we are too wrapped up in a story that is never real to begin with, a myth so comfortable we're willing to bleed others for it. This is an actual ancient history. It's happening right now. And when you close your eyes tonight, remember that someone across the world will not wake up at all. Their name will not be spoken on the evening news. Their death will not shift policy or move markets, but they had a favorite color. They had a story that's half told, a family that's now undone, and they died because the world mistook power for justice and silence for diplomacy. This is the grave we are digging. Not just for Gaza, but for our own collective soul. We cannot bury the truth alongside them. We have to dig it up. We have to scream it out loud. And if you wonder how such horror sustains itself, how the killing doesn't collapse under the weight of its own shame, you must understand the machine behind it. The gears of hate, rusted with propaganda and oiled with denial, spin without rest. You cannot bomb a people unless you've convinced your country they are not people. Israel has spent decades dehumanizing Palestinians in textbooks and television, in casual bureaucratic language of occupation. Terrorist is the default setting. The Palestinian child with a rocket is a threat. The Palestinian grandmother with a 𝓑𝓃𝓀 is a liability. They are taught that Gaza is not a neighbor, but a nest, a threat, a disease. This is not new. Every regime that commits genocide teaches itself to look away, teaches itself to forget that the bodies in the rubble once played soccer or learned how to spell or dreamed of growing up. When your government tells you day after day that the people across the wall are cockroaches, eventually you stop hearing the cries. And when the bombs start falling, you cheer. But this machinery doesn't run without fuel, and in the 20th century that fuel came from Washington, D.C. And since 1948 and mostly 1960,
they told us that Eve was the beginning of sin, that the woman was the reason we were cast out of Eden. That was a curse disguised as a creation story. It was a lie crafted by white men who wanted to control the narrative of God, of creation, and of power itself. They tried to erase the feminine. They demonized the womb. They made women ashamed of their own bodies, ashamed of their own connection to the divine. And then they spread that lie across the world. I'm currently reading We Will Be Jaguars by 𝉑𝆃𝓀𝑊ords, an indigenous woman from the Amazon. She shares how the missionaries came with the white man's God, claiming superiority and civilization, while indoctrinating her people, raping the land, and destroying their sacred way of being. But this didn't just happen in the Amazon. It happened everywhere. And for many of us, it happened so long ago that we've accepted it as normal. Look at what happened through the transatlantic slave trade. Africans were stolen, brutalized, and forced to abandon their languages, rituals, and spiritual systems. And today, most descendants, African Americans, and across the diaspora, are either Catholic or Christian. That didn't happen by accident. It was forced assimilation, spiritual colonization. But here's the deeper truth. The original sin was not disobedience. It was fear. Fear that we were separate from the Creator, the earth, and each other. That fear lives in the colonizer's mind, and it birthed greed, war, genocide, and domination. But they could never destroy what lives in our bones, our connection to the land, our ancestors, and the divine feminine. It lives in our DNA. We are remembering, we are reclaiming, we are returning. I highly recommend reading We Will Be Jaguars. It is a powerful book, and it's time to center indigenous voices, not just the stories told by the colonizer. The lie of Eve is crumbling, and the divine feminine is rising and restoring balance upon the planet. Will you join us or continue to be a part of the problem? It is more important than ever to build community and return to a more loving way of being that honors the earth and each other. Peace.
Stop getting distracted. Stop getting distracted. Keep your eyes on the ball. Keep your eyes on the target. Any news stories, any conspiracy theories, what did or didn't happen, any debates about how many babies may or may not die in what time scale, any debates about whether people are or aren't starving, what IPC phase are we in, can we prove that they're starving, all these arguments, all these debates, all these videos, everything is a distraction right now. Everything is noise other than concrete, actionable steps and targeted demands, specific acts in this moment. We are in a moment where our public mobilization and our exerting pressure on our governments is at the most effective because the tide is turning. They either stop blocking humanitarian aid and allow unimpeded, impartial access to humanitarian aid at scale and stop attacking civilians and critical infrastructure, or they don't, and it's a war crime aligned with their genocidal ambitions as stated repeatedly publicly in Gaza and the West Bank. Anything other than this, anything other than mobilizing around these 2 points is noise right now. Because our pressure is at the most effective right now because states are beginning to take action. Today, Algeria said that they will be introducing a draft text at the Security Council to impose a lift of the blockade. Is it likely that it will be vetoed? Yes. It is our job, the people that are in the 15 member states of the Security Council, to ensure that our government votes in favor of this resolution. And if we are left with a veto, we are left with that one veto that will cement the U.S. collaboration with the Zionists. And then in tandem with this and after this, we go all the way in exerting pressure on our states to apply regional pressure to take bilateral measures to isolate Israel completely. This is our job in this moment, because this, whether these states are too late, whether these states actually care or not, it doesn't matter. This is the shit that it will take to make it stop. States that are not yet imposing sanctions and are making statements, we exert pressure for them to begin imposing sanctions. States that have begun instituting sanctions, it is our job to ensure that they continue to institute more sanctions, to continue to isolate Israel further. When you make Israel impossible, it cannot function isolated from the international community. When you make Israel impossible, you make genocide unsustainable.
We're in a moment where the tide is turning. We're in a moment where we can push for these things. Think global, act local. Don't get into distractions. Don't get into this noise. Get into concrete, actionable steps. Targeted asks. Our specific ask for people that are in these 15 member states is to support this resolution. This looks like protest. This looks like mass calls. This looks like mass mobilization. This looks like emailing members, ambassadors of those 15 states. This is what we get behind. This is what we use our platforms for.
If you are using the Star of David as a military symbol, as an icon of conquest, how is that my fault? There's a lot being said about anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, and I'm constantly reminded of my childhood. When I was young, my house was taken by settlers, and they happened to be Jewish. And it wasn't my fault that they were Jewish. They just happened to be Jewish. They decided to come and take our house and say our house was theirs by divine decree, because God said that the Jews owned the land. That is not my problem. That is not my fault. And I think this is a microcosm for the entirety of the settler state.
Jacob, you know this is not your house.
Yes, but if I go, you don't go back. So what's the problem? Why are you yelling at me? I didn't do this.
You are stealing my house.
And if I don't steal it, someone else is going to steal it.
This is a colonial enterprise that has decided willingly to desecrate and exploit Jewish symbols in favor of its settler project. And we are supposed to distance ourselves from that. If you are using the Star of David as a military symbol, as an icon of conquest, how is that my fault? If you are leveling neighborhoods to the grounds, then planting the Star of David in the middle of the neighborhood. If you are literally carving the Star of David in the faces of young Palestinian men, how are we supposed to distance ourselves from this conflation when this government is intentionally, explicitly, and institutionally conflating Judaism, the religion, with Zionism, a racist ideology? The burden and the responsibility of making the distinction does not fall on the oppressed. It does not fall on the colonized. When they are exploiting that conflation in their favor, this falls on them. Frankly, I am tired of watching bombs drop on people, watching people draw their last breaths, and having these images and scenery disrupted by requests that I condemn this, and I denounce that, and I rebuke this, and I rebuke that. It's absolutely incredible. It's crazy. The material systemic reality is that of physical, tangible subjugation, and yet we are talking about what is anti-Semitic and what is not anti-Semitic when Palestinians are being slaughtered. But this is so revealing about the West. It's revealing about the kind of psyche that holds so many people hostage. We are willing to look evil in the eye. We are willing to look violence in the eye and treat it as an everyday banality, right? Palestinians are robbed of their rights. Our homes are demolished. We do not have the freedom of movement to move from city to city. We are bombed into oblivion. All of that is tolerated, even celebrated, certainly financed by the world's superpowers, by the United States, by Britain. What does that say to us?
Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well and are having your shit together, things together. I just recently published a podcast that definitely, as I said in the podcast, and I confirm a lot of things, and Father God is keep confirming a lot of things from that podcast. 97, just more deeper awakening, but these are stuff that I wasn't planned to do, but it was just like I needed to post, and I see why Father God was like, yeah, expect some retaliation, and also censorship and suppression, but because it's very, very truth. He kept saying that it confirms a lot of what's going on with this. It's like a cult, blood sacrifice. I talk about that in the other videos, but also he kept confirming that, and also how they're obsessed. Like, they're obsessed with killing. This is why they're trying to normalize it, because they are psychopath sadists, right? And these are people who are mentally unstable and ill, right? And us calling them out and stuff like that, this is why when we have other people enabling this type of behavior, this is why we are where we are now, right? So please go listen to the podcast. Make sure you share and put it out there. I literally can't make this up. Look at this. Like, this was, I tried to post it yesterday on Instagram, they block it, and then another time block it as well. So I was like, okay, I see what they're doing, right? And also on Spotify as well, there's this like intense suppression. So I really appreciate if you guys, if you can go on a Spotify, it's going to be on my YouTube channel already. Yeah, there was also an energy reading where a lot of you, a wise leader, a lot of you who are speaking up the truth and stuff like that, there's a message for you, okay? Intense, all right? Also, it explains how much this is costing and why are they doing it. It's basically stealing, right? They're stealing lifetimes, they're stealing everything. They want to be like Palestinians. They want to take not only their land, their culture, they want to be them. Let that sink in. And also they are obsessed. Now it's an obsession. It's like a thirst to murder. This is what Zionism is. And this is what a lot of you don't want to wake up to this and don't want to, that's how the programming and condition has, the indoctrination is so severe that, yeah. So who is getting this money? Who's benefiting from that? Right? And let's not even talk about the climate impact of these bombs and all of this. But yeah. So genocide in Gaza has already exceeded the annual carbon footprint over 20 climate vulnerable nations. You don't get to talk about sustainability if you're silent while farms are bombed and ecosystems are uprooted from illegal settlements. Zionism isn't just genocide, it's just ecocide in a global scale. And that is a fact. And Father God kept confirming that in that podcast. He kept talking about that a lot of us, silence is really complicit, but also like a lot of people enabling this type of behavior. It's gonna take all of us, like collective liberation consciousness, like all of us, that Christ energy consciousness that they're trying to bury, they're trying to hide, they're trying to suppress and stuff like that. Like a lot of us, we really have to stand up for not just the Palestinians, but also what's going on in the Congo and the Sudan. We really have to. And at this point, it's not just like, it's really like a must. Like we have to prioritize this. Like our priority should be ending genocide. Also, this wildfires happening and 17,000 people evacuated. It's not really shown much in the news, which is interesting, right? So again, confirming multiple times. Father God keeps confirming multiple times the podcast. Like, yeah, everything we're talking about here, it's like he's just like, okay, I'm just gonna continue screaming and confirming with every other, not just me, other people, which is a messenger here. But he kept saying this, and this is why we have to let go of the conformity and the ignorance and staying comfortable, because it doesn't affect me. It will. It's coming to a lot of your houses. Like, look at that. That looks like an inferno. Like, what the fuck? And a lot of you people think like, oh, that's just natural. No, this isn't natural. This is not natural. This is the constant bombing in one specific area and then fires. What do you think? You think Gaia is not going to retaliate? What are you talking about? A lot of you go, this is another thing what I'm saying is like, what, do you think our planet is not resisting constant abuse? That we're doing, and we're allowing all those psychopath people do it because they're just, what? Because they're white? Because that's what it is. Jewish white supremacy, that's what that is. No actual Jew, and also using Judaism, the religion, to justify genocide. Like a real Jew is anti-Zionist, it will not be okay with this shit. But also there's this energy that's letting us know where, yeah, I don't have to say it, but a lot of you know where they need to, yeah. So yeah, that podcast explains this. At all costs. Not just podcast, blog, protesting, boycotting, divesting. Meet your representatives, go to town hall meetings and talk about Palestine. Never stop talking. Like, I cannot stop. We should not stop until this is over. The apartheid, and also this bullshit of the ceasefire for 60 days. What are you talking about? So you're like, just a pause so that you can continue killing after. You see how sadistic and psychopath and psychotic this is? They are normalizing. They're like, oh, we're just going to take a break from killing But even when there's ceasefire that happened also in Lebanon and other places, they're still killing, they're still bombing, they're still. What do you mean? Also, I don't know about all of you, but the U.S. Being all the humanitarian aid or whatever, it's all like distraction and shit like that. Like they are the primary. This is why there needs to be sanctioned and stop sending bombs to Israel. Like what the fuck? It's not that hard. Just stop sending bombs. Stop providing sanction. What do you mean?
Museums, instead to watch the destruction of Gaza, known as resilience tourism in Israel, but as genocide tourism internationally.
So we were a mile and a half or so from 300,000 people who were being forcibly starved to death by the Israelis.
That was Matthew Ho, a former U.S. State Department official and U.S. Marine veteran, who recently took this tour in СдеРoT, where visitors use coin-operated binoculars to peek into Gaza.
An Israeli school field trip showed up, and these children, they're teenagers, they came from 2 hours away to come and watch the genocide.
The tours are also done in English for international visitors and are included in Birthright Israel trips.
Tell me that these people are not obsessed. This is what I talk about in the podcast 97. This is on my Telegram as well. You have access to it.
In Gaza, I operated in hospitals without sterility, electricity, or anesthetics. Surgeries took place on crowded and filthy floors. Children died not because their injuries were unsurvivable, but because we lacked blood, antibiotics, and the most basic supplies that are readily available in any large hospital anywhere else in the world. I did not see or treat a single combatant during my 5 weeks in Gaza. My patients were 6-year-olds with shrapnels in their heart and bullets in their brains, and pregnant women whose pelvises had been obliterated and their fetuses cut in two while still in the womb. Mothers sheltering in the hospital cooked bread on hot plates in the emergency department during mass casualty events, as we dealt with the rain of fire and death falling around us everywhere. Mr. President, the foundations of life in Gaza, family, health, and community, have been shattered. The medical system has not failed. It has been systematically dismantled through a sustained military campaign that has willfully violated international humanitarian law. Civilians are now dying not just from the constant airstrikes, but from acute malnutrition, sepsis, exposure, and despair. Between my 2 visits to Gaza, I witnessed a sharp decline in patients' health.
I don't give a shit. Israel should not exist. Fuck Israel. Fuck everyone else who is okay supporting this. Free Palestine. From the river to the sea. And it's going to be free.